A matchup of two teams whose defenses last year could not be much worse, and they have made changes on the coaching staff in both cases. Both of them replacing Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
It's a Spider-Man meme.
It is. And I'm telling you right now, Jesse, I'm not worried about either offense. I think this game comes down to whose defense actually got better.
Yeah, I mean, what's the final spread on this one? What are we sitting at?
So the total is 63.5. We can pick the total too if you want. Total
63.5. I mean, you're going to take an under in LSU USC? I mean,
I doubt it.
That's a high
LSU's
total.
A 4.5-point favorite. Total 63.5. So we're talking about a shootout of epic proportions, which is exactly what I want in my standalone Sunday night game.
Brian Kelly cannot lose this game, right? I mean, if you 3 straight years, if you lose a spotlight showcase game where you're the only game everybody's watching and you lose and you were a favorite 2 of those times at least, I think this would be, you talk about the Florida game, Florida, Miami, narrative. This game is close because, USC is basically budget LSU. They just haven't spent quite as much money in the transfer portal. They don't have quite as many good players. But you still say, hey, their coach has a track record of winning, a lot of big games. I don't know. I mean, I'm actually surprised that this spread is not even a little bit tighter, just because I do think there's some real concerns about LSU's front seven. And yet it's not exactly like we have a ton of answers about, what D'Anton Lynn's working with at USC. It's not like he got to bring over all those hosses and dudes he had over at UCLA.
He brought some of them, though. He did bring some. Laitu Latu is obviously an Indianapolis Colt, but look, I'm going to turn the question you asked on you. You asked, okay, can Brian Kelly afford to lose this game? Can Lincoln Riley afford to lose this game? Remember, they've got Utah State next week, but then they've got at Michigan, and then Wisconsin comes. Like, things get very tough very early for USC. If they don't win this game, they're in a world of hurt, especially, like, let's say their offense is not as dynamic as maybe they'd hoped, and LSU does play well on defense. That gives you no confidence with them going into Michigan.
No, you're not wrong, but I still think there's more pressure on Brian Kelly, frankly, just because he's got a bigger crooked number next to his name here. LSU, I think, has, they've at least been considered a fringe playoff team, in this new 12-team era. I think if a school like LSU or Penn State doesn't make it in this first 12-team playoff, their fan bases are going to be pretty rabidly angry because
I think Brian Kelly's bought himself. Like, winning the SEC West in year 1 helps. Having a Heisman Trophy winner in year 2, even though the defense stunk, helps. Like, he's bought himself time. And you look at LSU's 25 recruiting class. Like, what's been LSU's problem? Like, for whatever reason, the LSU cornerback factory seems to have shut down. Like, you look at that recruiting class for 25, they're reopening that factory. So I think they're addressing the needs, but the defensive needs personnel-wise have not been addressed. So, Again, like we talked about with the Georgia Tech game, like we talked about with the North Carolina game, does having new defensive coaching staff dramatically improve the defense when the defense is a lot of the same guys? And I think that's – so D'Anton Lynn at USC at least got to bring in – he brought in a couple guys from UCLA, brought in some other guys from around the country where you see where he was trying to bring in the body types that he prefers. Because obviously the defense Alex Grinch ran, one of the big criticisms of Alex Grinch was that, especially up front, the body types were not what they needed to be. And, I mean, all you got to do is look at what Brent Venables had to do on Oklahoma's defensive line as soon as Alex Grinch left. Like, they had to immediately import 300-pounders because they didn't have any. And you've seen Alex Grinch get a bunch of long DBs. He wants long, rangy corners. He got some of those. So, or see D'Anton Lynn get those guys. So it will be a fascinating kind of case study because LSU really didn't change much personnel-wise, but did hire Blake Baker from Missouri. Does Blake Baker alone and the staff members he brought, do they change that much? And does Dan Lynn change that much? That's my question. And the thing is, like, we may not know, because LSU replacing Jaden Daniels, but also replacing Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., 2 first-round receivers. Do they have a first-round receiver on this team? I don't know.
I do know they have the best offensive line in this game, and that's why I'm going to be that, and the Brian Kelly desperation, just him needing this win, is why I'm going to go with LSU here. It's kind of a weird number. It's in that Bill Simmons Vegas zone where it's 4.5. That's kind of an odd number. Not crazy about that. But again, can Danton Lynn teach a new group of dogs how to tackle? Because as we talked about with the Georgia Tech coach, Tyler Santucci was able to do that. That was a lot of the same guys, and Georgia Tech looked fundamentally and very much improved there. USC, I mean, it was a car crash, crash test dummies, trying to tackle folks a year ago. It was just pathetic. So
yeah.
Have they fixed that? We'll see. Colin Lacey and some of these guys that LSU has on the perimeter, I think they still like those guys, even as you mentioned, you did lose a pair of first-round wideouts.
Yeah, and they bring in CJ Daniels from Liberty.
Yeah,
and Kyron Lacey's still there. So they got talent there. Garrett Nussmeier, we think, is going to be a very good quarterback too. But I think Miller Moss can be just fine. Like, I realized they brought on Jaden Mayava, and it took a while for Lincoln to name Miller Moss the starter. I think he's going to be fine too. This is all about the defense. I think LSU covers here. I think it's a fun game. I'm going to say LSU covers and take the over.
So you got them hitting the 63.5. I'll say LSU covers, but it's going to be they're not going to get 63.5.
Okay, taking the under, which means somebody's defense got better.
Somebody's defense got better, and I think as we saw in that Florida State game, sometimes these possessions can shrink up quickly.
Well, and okay, while we're talking about that, the helmet communication, we had coaches tell us in the offseason this could lead to more huddling, because it's just easier to tell the quarterback and then he tells the team. It may slow teams down. We only have the few games we saw, and some of these teams, like I watched SMU play. They still had all the signs. They were still trying to go very fast.
Last year said they wanted to go faster.
Right. So I do think we're going to see some teams try that, but I also think we're going to see some teams slow down. So some of these totals may have to come down as the season goes on, because we may just see fewer possessions in games.
Yeah, we're going to find out. And it's lovely that college football can't call it the 2-minute warning. We have to call it the 2-minute
timeout. You call it whatever you want, everybody.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On 3 Sports YouTube channel.